Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Curtis Candy's Goosh-tastic podcast. And I did get through Curtis Candy without mispronouncing a word this time. The word Goosh-tastic all by itself, it makes me feel kind of dirty just saying it. Maybe it's because I know, and those of us that are, for those of you who don't know, we live stream these podcast episodes at our Patreon, which we affectionately call the Goosh. And then, of course, the podcasts are then uploaded to all the typical outlets. We here, as regulars, know what Goosh means. So I guess maybe that's why it makes me feel a little bit unclean, but it's all right. It's all right. I think I'll be just fine with the uncleanliness of it all. Got a lot of stuff we want to talk about today. I want to take a look at, and as always, don't let me forget to point this out. Those of you here in the chat, and those of you listening in who'd like to be part of the chat, we have a system here where you can ask a question, post a question to the stream as we go. People who like that question would like to see it answered, give it thumbs up. And then when I go down, I can check the list. The ones who have gotten the most thumbs up, I try and stay, with those for the ones to answer live. Again, we'll start doing that a little later in the stream as we brought up more of the topics we're going to be talking about, and giving people more time to think of the questions they'd like to ask and give a thumbs up to the ones that they'd like to have answered. Now, today, I'll give you guys, we'll do things a little bit differently than we did last time. I'll give you guys the rundown of the topics that we'll be talking about, and then we'll take them one by one. First of all, we're going to be dissecting Andrew Yang a little bit. Not literally. I don't have him here, and I don't have any sharp instruments right now, so I can't literally dissect him, and he would probably be, I don't think that he would be in agreement with that. But we're going to go to his website. I know a little bit about him. In all fairness, and I try and be honest with you guys always, I know enough about him to know that it's very unlikely that were he the Democratic nominee that I would be voting for him, but that's true of all the Democratic candidates. But I think my initial impression of him is he seems like a really decent kid. He seems like a good dude. I think he's well-intentioned. I imagine, and we'll find out more about this today, I don't think that him and I are going to be down the line on too awful many platitudes, but I think he's definitely worth researching a little bit more, and I thought it would be fun to do it together. Then we're going to be talking about a hashtag that's been running on Twitter for the last couple of days it's hashtag Hot Girls for Bernie. Yep. Hot Girls for Bernie. If you haven't seen that hashtag, hopefully you're at a device where you can go look that up right now, because there's some definite conversation needed about that. Then we're going to touch a little bit on acupuncture. See how I phrase that? Touch on acupuncture. We're going to poke around acupuncture. God damn it, I missed it. That was the obvious bad pun. We're going to poke around a little bit about acupuncture, so stay with us for that. And then I want to have a conversation about the true, hard truth about the impeachment of Trump. That no matter how much new evidence comes in, no matter where you are on the spectrum of guilty, not guilty, what we should do with them, I'm seeing there are some real harsh truths here that are not necessarily discussed, and I'd like to talk about them with you. As always, if you're in with the live recording of the podcast, not only can you post questions, but there is a very lively, very active chat right here as well, and I will be responding to some of the comments, questions, concerns right in the chat as well. But let's get started with this right off. Andrew Yang. He's certainly got a strong support on social media. Not surprising, because he appeals to the age group that would tend to be the most internet savvy. So I guess that's not really surprising. As I said, seems like a decent enough kid. He's most known for, and I'm going to pull up his website here. He's most known for his freedom dividend. Blah, blah, blah. As you guys know, that is his proposal to give $1,000 a month to every person over 18 in the nation. On the surface, that opens up a lot of really rather serious questions for me. Just in and of itself, just that expression, that's what you want to do. I have concerns. The most obvious of which I can't do the math off the top of my head, and I don't have all the variables. I don't know exactly how many people over 18 there are in the United States right now. Since there's 350 million of us, you would have to assume that probably at least 260, 270 million probably fit that category. And at $1,000 a month, that's a fairly healthy price tag. But what we're going to do is we're going to be fair. I'm going to read off. This comes directly from yang2020.com/policies. Now, his big 3 policies it says here are freedom dividend, Medicare for all, and human-centered capitalism. Let's start with freedom dividend. I'm going to click on this. If you're in front of again, you have a means to follow along on the internet, by all means, click right along with me here. And it says, Andrew would implement the freedom dividend, a universal basic income of $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year. Even I knew that. I can do that math. For every American adult over the age of 18. This is independent of one's work status or any other factor. This would enable all Americans to pay their bills, educate themselves, start businesses, be more creative, stay healthy, relocate for work, spend time with their children, take care of loved ones, and have a real stake in the future. Well, it's certainly posed as nothing, it's presented as nothing but rainbows and lollipops. Other than regular increases to keep up the cost of living, any change to the freedom dividend would require a constitutional amendment. Now I got a problem already. Well, oh, a constitutional, this is going to be a constitutional right here? No, because for one thing, it's something radical, it's something brand new. There's a real legitimate chance that it won't work out as planned, and it could do great harm to the economy. Okay, yeah, you lost me on that one a little bit. It will be illegal to lend or borrow against one's dividend. A universal basic income at this level would permanently grow the economy by 12.56 to 13.10%, or about 2.5 trillion by 2025, and it would increase the labor force by 4.5 to 4.7 million people. Okay, again, you're losing me because now you're just throwing out numbers. And I don't care what think tank you got those numbers from or anything. Do you know how much conjecture there has to be to come up with those numbers? You have to be conjecturing right down the line exactly how you expect everybody to use that money, and any variance from that is going to fluctuate those numbers greatly. I don't want to seem like I'm coming at Andrew Yang only for this, because all politicians do it. They like to put the gaudy numbers out there that make their proposals look really good. But the simple fact of the matter is, when there's this much conjecture involved in coming up with those numbers, they really don't mean an awful lot. And I'm going back and forth looking at some comments here. Chrome, you let off our comments last time, Chrome. So where does the money come from? Stealing it from richer people or the magic money tree? And Dark Slaper responds with, nobody knows, Chrome, so I'm guessing money tree. Hold on, we're going to be fair, though. Let's be, and I mean this sincerely, I'm not being sarcastic. It says, learn more about universal basic income. Let's be fair to Andrew Yang, and I'm sure he probably does. Okay, this page is perfect. What is the freedom dividend? We read that. Why does he want to, Andrew Yang? Because we're experiencing the greatest technological shift the world has ever seen. By 2015, automation had already destroyed 4 million manufacturing jobs. Okay, well, for one thing, automation has for decades been making some jobs obsolete. But as you can see, with the unemployment rate as low as it is, historically low right now, it's hard to make a strong case that at this point that automation has really hurt the job market. And there's our friend the train. As technology improves, here we go. I found a paragraph. Here we go, guys. Just what we asked. The freedom dividend funded by here we go. Simple value added tax. That's it. It's a tax. That's how they're going to pay. That's how he's going to pay for it, with a VAT. Would guarantee that all Americans benefit from automation, not just big companies. The freedom dividend would provide money to cover the basics for Americans while enabling us to look for a better job, start our own business, go back to school, take care of our loved ones, or work towards our next opportunity. Oh, so basically, as with anything else, it's a redistribution. Because to me, a value-added tax, is a redistribution of money. Now, whatever he's going to apply this VAT to, basically, what in a case like that, the people who have more money to spend are going to obviously be contributing more into the VAT, into the value-added tax, and that way it allows Andrew to go in and redistribute that money down to those who don't have as much money to spend. Now, am I wrong in this? I'm reading Andrew's website, but I'll come back and forth to our comments here. Am I missing something here? Because that's basically what we're talking about to support this universal basic income. It's just basically a tax to redistribute money. Correct? That's what I would take from that, from the VAT. So again, there you lose me, because I should point out, and I've mentioned this before, as a general rule, I am all for not giving our government money for them to then determine how to redistribute it back to us. Not a fan of that in any way, shape, or form. I prefer a free market exchange for everything that it is conceivable to have a free market exchange. Let's see. It's basically the government deciding what should happen with your money, because of course you can't decide on your own. That's comment from Chrome. That's how I'm reading it anyway. Gigamax says tax brackets go up all around, but some people get a net increase from their taxes they pay, from what I understand. Well, see, it would be hard to say. You would assume, and I could be faulty here, but no matter how you slice the math, it seems like the more you would spend on items that are a part of this VAT, the more you're being taxed, obviously. So those with big spending power would be putting into the system, so those with less spending power could take out of the system. I mean, that's how it reads to me, and that is not something I would get behind at all. I'm reading now some more of the different questions, or the answers that Andrew Yang gives about the freedom dividend. What are the benefits? UBI encourages people to find work. Many current welfare programs take away benefits when recipients find work, sometimes leaving them financially worse off than before. A lot improves the mental health of recipients, because I think you're taking some real leaps of faith here. UBI helps people make smarter decisions. Studies have shown that people in straits of economic insecurity have a reduced cognitive ability equal to 13 IQ points. What? I'm sorry, that's funny. UBI would provide the security people need to focus on important things like their family. So did Andrew Yang just say poor people are stupid? Is that what I read? Or did he say people that are struggling financially are stupid? Isn't that what I read? And Gigamac makes a good point. He says 13 LMAO, that's almost the standard deviation. Yeah, true. It falls right. It falls within normal parameters within the test, but that, yeah. Oh boy, I don't know if reading up on all this was that good an idea. I don't. Okay. UBI improves physical health. With increased economic security, people are less prone to stress, disease, and self-destructive behavior. Okay, I'm going to get out of this portion of it because I think this is insane. It's just making such ridiculously huge leaps to, and again, I understand it's his platitude, it's his platform. He's got to make it sound as desirable as possible, but it's, yeah. When the value-added tax just get passed on to consumers, canceling out the UBI? No. First, not all goods will be subject to the VAT. Well, that's good. Staples such as groceries and clothing will be excluded. Let's see. Finally, an individual would have to buy a lot of non-exempt items to cancel out the value of the UBI. Assuming all goods are subject to a VAT and the entire VAT is passed on to consumers, an individual would have to buy 120,000 worth of items for the extra cost. Yeah, there's a lot of voodoo math in here. A lot of it. Where did it come from? I don't really care. Why do we need the freedom dividend now? 4 million manufacturing and countless through the Midwest with new developments in technologies. So basically, Andrew and I had heard this before. His big concern seems to be automation. And I don't think automation is as big, at least to this point. In fairness to him, automation could someday be a major factor in harming the economy. I don't think we're there yet. As a matter of fact, I remember, and I'm reading as we go, I'm sorry, guys. I remember that some of the Yang Gang I had read online stated, and I couldn't find it so far, I haven't seen it so far, a lot of their concerns were, and apparently it came right from Andrew's website, that truck driving will become automated very soon. And it made me laugh because those of you know, I was a truck driver for a lot of years. Now, if you're actually, if the automation of truck driving is what drives the need for something like this, and that's just insanely ludicrous. That is so desperately far away from becoming a reality. It is not high on anybody's priority list. All we've seen of it are some, and I called up an article about this, knowing it would be part of the conversation. Uber's Otto, this is from Reuters.com in the UK. Uber's Otto hauls Budweiser across Colorado in self-driving truck. Now, I had heard about this test. They had a truck self-drive a run to deliver some Budweiser beer. Now, before we start jumping on board of, well, we're almost there, it's almost time that trucks are going to be automated. We don't need truck drivers anymore. On a straight path, it's not that big an accomplishment by today's standards to get a truck along an interstate highway or an open highway to self-drive. I mean, that technology has been being developed for some time. If you look at the videos of that episode, you will see that there's very carefully placed van right behind that truck, and there's a van right in front of that truck. The reason being, obviously, you got other cars out there. Who knows how well that vehicle will be controlled if another car makes an unexpected move, as opposed to having a driver sitting at the wheel. So they kept that in very, very tight circumstances. It was also said that the driver did have to get behind the wheel to do really complicated things, such as take an off-ramp. What makes that even further ridiculous is, having been a truck driver, we see them on the throughways, on the highways. Well, I'm in New York, so I'm always saying throughway. On the highways throughout the country all the time. That's not the bulk of your driving. Trucks are going to have to driven within cities where, you know, people are parking alongside the road and throwing their door out in front of you. The trucks are going to have to driven in poor weather conditions. How is the self-driving truck going to handle snow and ice as opposed to an experienced driver who knows exactly how to react to the vehicle reacting to the poor condition on the road? Long story short, this is it's not seriously on anybody's list of things that they want, they need, they desire. And even if they did, it is so far down the road. There's no way that any amount of governmental money, of course, would go into something like this, supporting something like this, before it should go into fixing the infrastructure that these trucks operate on and is falling apart from under us. Guys, I'm not being swayed so far by what I'm seeing from Andrew's site here. Now, there was another thing, and I wanted to find this in here. Let me see if I can find it, because I know it was discussed online, and that the online discussions I was involved in and taking part in are what really brought this up for me. But I'm not seeing where he economy and jobs, environment, voting reform. I'm not seeing where he said it, but what I'm understanding is, oh, hold on a second here. I've lost some of my. I've lost some of Andrew's website is malfunctioning a little bit on me here. Let me get this pulled back up. Our policies, come on. All right, there we go. Now the hyperlinks are working again. I don't know that. What the hell happened here? The freedom dividend. There we go. He had said, now this is another serious issue I have with the freedom dividend. Andrew has said that for people who are on public assistance, and I wish I could find this quote directly. Trust me, it is there. for people who are on public assistance, they would have the option of the freedom dividend or keeping the benefits they have. That's a huge problem. And it said somewhere in there, at least it was quoted, as stating that, well, of course, people would rather have that $1,000 because then it allows them more flexibility to do with it exactly what they want. Here's the problem with that. The reason we have the system we do for a lot of these benefits is because people were abusing it when it was easy to abuse. Food stamps used to be traded for cash value all the time. They were used to buy things that they weren't intended to buy. There were a lot of many years, this decades ago, a lot of bodega stores got in trouble because they would sell cigarettes to people in exchange for food stamps, typically, 50 cents on the dollar, something like that. You could sell your food stamps, again, at a substantial discount, 50 cents, whatever, 25 cents on the dollar. And the idea of needing assistance, wanting assistance in taking care of your family was so that the assistance actually went to the children involved, not so much the parents who, may have a lot of other issues in life as well. Now, there's a lot of people who legitimately just need a hand up, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'll pay taxes all day long to help out somebody else who is just in tough times. But they found with the whole system of welfare that a lot of people were not taking that money and using it to take care of their family. They were using it, again, for their cigarettes, for a lot of times for their drugs. So they changed the system to where you had the benefit card. Everything was on the card, and you could track it that way. You couldn't just go trade your food stamps at 50 cents for $1 to get some cash. So what Andrew's talking about doing is throwing you backwards, taking you backwards on the whole welfare system to where now it is just cash again. So it's less likely in many circumstances to get to the people who really need it, the children of these families. And even for those who legitimately just need the help, if they legitimately do need that help, why would they need it in cash rather than the system we have in place now where they can go out and get food and get whatever other assistance they need? Let's see. I'm just looking to see if there are any comments on it. I'm going to check our ask a questions really quick as we're going here. I'm going to hold off on that one. I'm going to see if there's anything. Okay. One of the questions, what do you think about Andrew's idea to give everyone $1,000? Of course, that's what we're discussing right now. So I'm just going through the questions, and I try and keep the ones that are on point to what we're talking about at the moment. Now, long story short, I am not a fan of the freedom dividend for all the reasons we described. I don't think there's any point in or any reason to belabor that point. Economy and jobs, human-centered capitalism. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Capitalism as an economic system has led to unparalleled innovation and improvement in the human condition. This is right from Andrew's site. Many consider it to have won the war of ideas against socialism, but that simplistic view ignores that there is no such thing as a pure capitalist system, and our current version of institutional capitalism and corporatism is a relatively recent development. That's not untrue. We need to move to a new form of capitalism, human capitalism. Boy, does that sound like some empty buzzwords, though, I have to say. That's geared towards maximizing human well-being and fulfillment. The central tenets of human capitalism are: humans are more important than money. The unit of a human capitalism economy is each person, not each dollar. Markets exist to serve our common goals and values. So is this... I'm a little flummoxed here. Really, this is it? The focus of our economy should be to maximize human welfare. Sometimes this aligns with a purely capitalistic approach where different entities compete for best ideas. But there are plenty of times when a capitalist system leads to suboptimal outcomes. Oh, I'm disappointed. I got to tell you, this is a bunch of buzzwords and a wish list. Human-centered capitalism. All that's done here is it's basically defined what it means, but gives no details. Humans are more important than money. Okay, I think most people would agree with that. So what's your point? What is it that you want to change? Or is it something that he doesn't have answers for, or things that it's answers that he doesn't want to put out there? Okay, let's go to Medicare for all, because that's one of my major bugaboos. I'm not being sold on Andrew at all so far. Is the long story short. We're having the wrong conversation on healthcare. It says here on his website. Instead of addressing the underlying problems driving unaffordability and access, we Democrats are spending all our time arguing over who is the most zealous in wanting to cover Americans. That's not true, or that's not untrue. Over who has wanted to do so longer, over who cares more about the health of Americans. He's right. And we've all seen that in the debates and in social media. We talk about how we're going to pay for it, but the reality is we're already paying for it. We pay for it when we can't switch jobs. We pay for it when new jobs are temp or gig jobs that don't provide health care. We pay for it when all of our prices are higher. We pay for it when the healthcare costs drive us into bankruptcy. To be clear, I support the spirit of Medicare for all and have since the first day of this campaign. I do believe that swiftly reformatting 18% of our economy and eliminating private insurance for millions of Americans is not a realistic strategy, so we need to provide a new way forward on healthcare for all Americans. Now Andrew and I are starting to get in sync a little bit here. I like this much better than what I've heard from most of the other candidates, the Democratic candidates right now. As Democrats, we all believe in healthcare as a human right. We all want to make sure there is universal affordable coverage. We know we have a broken healthcare system where Americans spend more money on healthcare to worse results. We are spending too much time fighting over the differences between Medicare for all who want it, and ACA expansion, when we should be focusing on the biggest problems that are driving up costs and taking lives. We need to be laser focused on how to bring the cost of coverage down by solving the root problems plaguing the American healthcare system. Now, I don't disagree with him here. I don't disagree with Andrew at all here. We should go deeper into exactly what his plans are, but as far as what he's outlining there, I'm glad. I actually wanted to find common ground with Andrew Yang, and here I do. I don't support. The only thing is, he says he supports the spirit of Medicare for all. I do not. What I believe is that healthcare should be available. Affordable healthcare should be available to all, and I have a different approach to that. I believe that these big tax breaks that corporate America has seen recently should be rolled back. Many of them should be rolled back. We'd have to go, we're not going to go through them one by one right now and try and determine what was legitimate and what was not. But anyway, I think corporate America should get tax breaks as a direct result of the level of healthcare they're willing to provide for their employees, and giving it several tiers, as I said before, a bronze tier, silver tier, gold tier, and then you will get your tax breaks in accordance with that. Further, I think that when there is someone who is employed and doesn't have healthcare, doesn't have access to quality healthcare, maybe they're on that bronze plan, I am all for, even if it does mean an increase in taxes to a degree, I am all for a system where the government would provide an affordable alternative. I do not believe, as Andrew, and in fairness, Andrew Yang said the same thing, I do not believe in destroying the private healthcare system as we know it now, when you have, estimates are between 100 and 150 million people, myself included, who have healthcare that they really like and are not interested in any type of a change. Let's see what we're seeing in the comments here. Maybe let's see. I find Yang to make some valid points regarding human-centered capitalism, Nuptup says. See, he probably has Nuptup, but not on his website. That was the extent of it, and basically it was just talking points there. GDP growth does not directly correlate the life expectancy, mental health, etc. Hence, we need new human-centric measurements to replace GDP as the way to measure growth. Okay, I see what you're saying. You explained it further than in greater detail than does his website. But before I could say one way or the other that I support or disagree with him on his human-centered capitalism, I'd need greater detail than that. So what is the measurement that will replace GDP? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that that's a throwaway item. I just don't. He doesn't really explain it, and I just get frustrated when you have policy proposals put out there and they're that incomplete. That bothers me. Now, one of the advantages, as I said before, to doing these live streams and having these podcasts recorded as live streams is we have an international audience here at our Patreon. And so it's cool to get, especially when we talk about things like this, the perspective of those who are outside of the US. Now, Richard Shaw says, and I haven't been following all the comments, so Richard, I'm not sure where you're from. Well, here we have social insurance, meaning that everyone pays into a fund, and every insurance gets the same cut from that fund, so everyone pays the same unless they go into a private insurance, and the insurances have to offer better services to get more clients. And Richard says, I am German. Okay, okay, so I understand that. Cut from the fund, so they pays the same unless they go into a private insurance, and the insurances have to offer better services to get more clients. Seems like a fairly reasonable system. I think it would require too much restructuring in America. That sounds legitimate though. But what Richard pointed out too is something that gets left behind when we talk about, particularly in America, when we talk about Scandinavian countries and their democratic socialism and their form of healthcare. From what I've gleaned, and this is from people who live there, that is their home through the streams that we have had here at our Patreon and at the YouTube channel, is that there is still a robust private insurance market in those nations. And the complaint I have heard from many of these people, and again, this is just judging by what conversations I've had, I don't have firsthand knowledge, but the complaint I've heard is that they feel that there are two levels of healthcare then. If you can afford that private health insurance, you're treated a whole different way when you show up at the hospital than if you're on the socialized portion of it. So again, my big point on that is it doesn't make any sense when we think that a system is broken, and there is a lot broken about our healthcare system, to completely disseminate, to completely obliterate the portions that are working, for people who have private healthcare through their employer or wherever it may be and like it. It makes no sense to eliminate that. The first step should be saying, okay, this is a whole group of people we don't have to worry about because they are happy with what they have. So now let's worry about those who are not as fortunate. It doesn't make any sense to me to blow it all up and start from scratch. And Nuptup says, I listen to him on podcasts. Okay, so that's where he's getting his information from. But I agree, his website does not seem to be doing a good job. That's unfortunate. I would have liked to have gotten more from his website. So as it stands, we won't go into it any deeper. I'd love to have more conversations about him. I like him. I am in agreement with him overall, generally, when it comes to healthcare. I think he's on the right path there. I don't think my view on it is that far away from his. His $1,000 a month plan, no. As soon as I saw how many leaps he was making to get to where it's going to not be a financial burden, it was just insane. And I'm not, again, that VAT is simply just another way of redistributing wealth. That's all it is, because the people with more income will spend more on those items, so they will be taxed more, allowing for that money to be taken and given to those who can't spend as much. So it's, again, it's just another way it's just another tax. It's just another tax and another way for government to redistribute your money. And I am not a fan of government redistribution of our money. Let's see. So the government's going to take, Tuba Man Sam says, take money from the individual instead of that individual just using the money on private insurance. Yeah, well, that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing too, Tuba Man. For me, it's a solid, hardcore no on his universal basic income. And listen, I could use $1,000 a month just like anybody else. Another thing about that too, he doesn't take into account, the picture is painted as being so rosy and it's going to put money back into local economies and stuff. Wait a second. What if you're giving it to everybody? You're giving it to rich people, to everyone. You can't leave anybody out. So a lot of that money is going to be saved. There's a big hunk of that money. A lot of people are going to get that money and they're going to go buy more stuff from Amazon and Walmart, right? So, and these big corporations are the ultimate evil in this whole process. And yet there's a real chance that you're going to up their sales significantly. Because let's face it, you can't give out the $1,000 a month. Say, hey, you got to spend that on local businesses. Don't spend any of that at Walmart. Don't you dare go on Amazon with it. they're going to make out like bandits. And then you still have a system where Amazon as a corporation is not paying any taxes. So yeah, I don't know. One of the big things that funds healthcare here is Chrome is VAT, a 20% tax on all goods and such. And see, I don't necessarily agree with the VAT, but at least that one makes more sense. It's like, okay, you know, when you buy the product, you're putting into healthcare that's paid for by all. I don't want it for us at all, because again, as I've said, I think the private healthcare can work. I think Andrew's onto the right thing. What we need to do is control the cost. That's number one. The cost of healthcare has, and more specifically, pharmaceuticals, has just gotten completely out of hand in America. And the cost of lawsuits, the costs that have been driven up by frivolous lawsuits in America, have made things get out of hand. So I'm not necessarily for that VAT for that reason. However, I understand it. The VAT that Andrew Yang is talking about, to me, is just a redistribution of wealth. At least what Chrome is talking about is, okay, this is a tax where the money goes, we can see what it is for. It's to pay for everybody's health care. Whereas Andrew's VAT is just to take from those who have more to give to those who have less. He wants to boost profits, Dylan, but whose profits does he want to boost? He's looking to boost the profits of Amazon and Walmart because that somehow trickles down to benefit the middle class. I don't think that actually is his idea. And despite any of that, he loses me on that method, on the VAT. Okay, you can say, so if you're buying these items from Walmart and Amazon, well, they're going to have the VAT tax included, so you have that constant cycle going. But now you start doing the math, and the biggest winner is still going to be that big corporation. Let's see. How old is Andrew Yang? That's a good question, Lachlan. I'm not sure. I know he's a younger man. I don't know. Does anybody know offhand? I'm sure somebody in the chat will let us know. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's the long and short of it. But as we've said all along, the people that push for Medicare for all here do leave out the one important fact when they talk about the other nations that have it, is that their tax rate, whether it's in a VAT or whether it's in a direct income tax, is substantially higher than what we have in America. A lot higher. But that's a topic for another time. As a matter of fact, the next episode may be discussing why I am so down on and have no use for socialism, and that will come up in all that. I don't really think, Richard says, I don't think taxes are bad as long as they actually are used to improve life. Whose life, Richard? So, but that's the question. So should I pay more taxes to help out someone who just maybe doesn't have all that much ambition? So should those who work hard, struggle hard, do everything they can to get ahead, work, crazy amounts of hours, build their own business, whatever the case may be, should they be taxed at a higher rate because somebody else doesn't have that level of ambition? That's where you start to get into an area for me. I am all about government making success available to everyone. I am not about people going to government for everything. I think we should level the playing field as much as we can so everybody has a chance. If they want to work hard, if they want to succeed, they should be able to. I do not believe those who want to succeed have any obligation to those who choose not to. I don't agree with that too, man. Sam, taxation is that. Unfortunately, I think taxation is a necessary evil. I know that's a libertarian view, but I don't agree with that. But I am all for opportunity. I am not about the government being the teat from which we all suck. Okay, we covered Andrew Yang. Long story short, if you want my take on him, I still think he's a good kid. I think he's genuine. I think he's real. But I don't agree with his UBI, and unfortunately, that's the cornerstone of his campaign because that's what got him noticed. I do agree with him more so than all the other Democratic candidates, at least with a cursory glance, as far as it goes with healthcare. But yeah, we've just got too many differences. Let me double check what the questions are coming up with. Now this is a little bit off topic, but it's an interesting question anyway. And this is also from Chrome. Should Twitter and Facebook be legally defined as a publisher? Seeing how they made it clear they're not politically neutral with their support of individuals, as well as how they are known to suppress certain hashtags for political and monetary gain. That's a good question. I from what I've seen from both Twitter and Facebook at this point, yeah, it seems like they should be defined as a publisher, because again, if you're going to have that kind of reach, and you're going to use that type of reach to favor one voice over the other, then I think they need to be seen as a publisher and have to respect and fall in line with all the guidelines of being a publisher. So if this was maybe a couple of years ago, I would have said no. But as you pointed out in this post, Chrome, I do think that they have made it clear that they have certain political leanings that they should be seen as a publisher. Yes. Now, let's see. This is from NupTup. If UBI was in place, where do you think people would use that extra 1K for? Maybe rent, school, or on wrong influences like drugs? I think what I think NupTup is both. I think that a lot of people would use that extra 1K for very important things, for living their lives, just like you said, their housing, their schooling. I also think there's a lot of people that would, yeah, that if they're drug addicted, yes, they're probably going to use it for drugs. If they're gambling addicted, they're probably going to gamble the biggest part of it away. We've seen that in a family member who just recently passed away within our family, and passed away with next to nothing because of a gambling addiction. I think there will be another sector of society that doesn't reinvest it at all and saves it. It's all going to be dependent on the individual, and that's what makes taking actual numbers as far as what the effect of this $1,000 a month is going to have on the economy overall almost impossible, because everybody is going to use it in different ways. So to answer your question, I would say all of the above. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to our next topic, because, and again, for all the Yang Gang out there, I think your guy's a good dude. It's just not politically, probably not my dude. Okay, now we're talking about over the last couple days, it's been a hashtag trending on Twitter called Hot Girls for Bernie. Listen, when I saw, if you are in a situation as you listen to this and it's fairly recent, well, it won't matter because you'll find the archived comments and hashtags. I had to check that out. Now, the first thing I will say is, as I was scrolling through the pictures, people have a different definition of hot than do I. And now you can say, oh, you're an asshole. And it may be true. I very well may be an asshole. And I have no right to determine who is hot and who is not. But if you're going to put yourself under a hashtag calling yourself hot, I think you're asking, I think you're are kind of inviting at least that determination as to whether or not you fit it. Now, as someone who is clearly not hot, I think I can say with no reservation whatsoever that some of these people don't understand what it was all about. But I bookmarked, and I want to share this with you. There was a person on Twitter, and this person is at Pat the Burner, BERNER, and he posted under the hashtag Hot Girls for Bernie. He wrote, and he's a very gentle soul, it seems. Carrying is sexy as fuck. Reminder, in capital letters, Bernie bro is a myth. More women support Bernie than men. That may be true. Stop using the term. It's designed to dismiss women and people of color, and it's incredibly insulting to millions of Bernie supporters. So basically, what this burner is telling us is the term Bernie bro, which I apparently just do not look deeply into things such as monikers for a political candidate, seemed to me like it was just a cutesy little way to refer to themselves as the group that supports Bernie. But according to Pat the Burner, this is very important. It's designed. They came up with Bernie bro designed to dismiss women and people of color. So apparently people of color can't be bros. And now wait a second. If we do have a gender neutral society, why can't anyone be a bro? I there's so many mixed signals that I just don't know. I don't know where to go with this. But I can't believe that something as simple as Bernie Bro can create consternation and create that consternation among those who are Bernie supporters. It's insanity. And of course, Pat goes on to reinforce his point. He links some articles such as The Myth of Bernie Bro. Bernie Sanders supporters are more diverse. So they're actually offended. They don't want this, even if it is just one particular group that's Bernie Bros. Does Pat the Burner know that Bernie Bro was ever supposed to incorporate all Bernie supporters? Maybe it means the bros, the people who support Bernie and consider themselves bros. Why can't the rest of you have your own Bernie fill in the blank designation? It's amazing to me, the simplicity and just the softness of society. Bernie Bros was coined by Hillary to refer to the sexists who hated her. That said, whatever, it's outlasted its original purpose. Right, and even if that was the case, Dylan, and I had seen something along those lines, even if that was the case, it's still Bernie Bros. Again, if you support Bernie and you don't like that moniker, that's fine. But who cares if a section of Bernie supporters want to call themselves the Bernie Bros? If you have something else, that's fine. But the idea that, at least currently, that is designed strictly to leave out a sector of society, and how is it leaving out people of color, though? I don't understand. I mean, you could make the gender argument, although I'm surprised the Bernie supporters would want to make any gender argument. You can make the gender argument with the word bros, but why can people of color not be part of the bros? Omega Project says, here we go, the easily offended are at it again. That would be my take on it, pretty much. The message is, Nuptop says, that message is targeted at center left. They use this phrase to dismiss his support among people of color and the females. See, now I would have never put that together. Never in 100 years. And I don't think I'm going to say and using it. So if you're using, say, Bernie Bro on social media, I'm gonna go out there and say, if you tell 100 people these are the Bernie Bros, what does that mean? At least 99 of them are gonna go, oh, it's just a group of people who support Bernie. I don't think any of them would think in any way that it's leaving someone out. I don't think anyone would, not anyone, much of anybody in normal day-to-day society would believe that it's an attack on another group. Okay, if you don't want to be a Bernie Bro, don't be a Bernie Bro. Like I say, be a Bernie something else. But why does it matter if there are those who want to identify as Bernie Bros? Hell, look at Hillary called Trump supporters a basket of deplorables. And we know that she didn't mean it in a method or in a manner meant to be complimentary, but a lot of them took it and ran with it, and now they embraced it. You can't do the same thing with Bernie Bros? I don't know. It just seems like everybody's looking for more reasons to be offended than they are reasons to push their own candidate and their own beliefs further. The person at TimeLink says the person that was offended about it must not have enough real problems in life. Okay, let's check a couple more questions, then we'll go on to our next topic. Let's see. Lachlan Farron says, just wondering, Curtis, did you ever watch the Prince Andrew interview concerning Jeffrey Epstein we were talking about last podcast? Unfortunately, I have not. Since the last podcast, I've been balls out busy, and unfortunately, I haven't. I would like to see that, though. Yeah, I would absolutely like to see, especially knowing what we do, how supposedly, was it ABC? I don't want to say the wrong network. I think it was ABC. One of the networks had allegedly suppressed a news story or a special about Jeffrey Epstein because of pressure from the royals. So yes, I would definitely like to see that. Now Willie Plays. He says, why would I put my life in the hands? We're talking back when we're talking about Andrew Yang's proposals and self-driving trucks. Why would I put my life in the hands of a self-driving machine that can be hacked? Good point. Safety is my number one concern in all topics, and this is raising all my red flags. And I didn't get into that in detail, and I completely agree with you, Willie. There is no level at which I would be more confident with vehicles, particularly trucks, on the road, in mass, self-driving. You talk about, again, you have to have, you're right, you have to have a connection of some sort to that vehicle, whether it's internet, satellite, whatever the case may be. So we all experience in day-to-day life, in our modern life, we deal with satellites, we deal with internet, we deal with Wi-Fi all the time. How often are those things unreliable? What happens when the self-driving truck loses a signal of sort? There, as much as human error is always going to be a part of traffic accidents and be a part of the dangers of being on the road, I'd rather take my chances with the flesh and bones guy or girl sitting behind the wheel than I would the internet connection or the satellite signal staying strong. I completely agree with that, Willie. Let's see. Chrome says, if hot girls for Bernie can trend naturally, in quotes, why can't we get hashtag Gooshin for candy / bring back the fear to social media? If you guys can get hashtag Gooshin for candy to trend, yes, I will support it 100%. And I will post within that hashtag. I will post some really sexy pictures of myself as well. So there's that as an added incentive to get that trending. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. All right, let's go on to our next topic. This one is just something. This is strictly a question from me, and I don't. You guys, many of you know that I'm a hypnotist. I've studied hypnosis. I've been hypnotizing people for decades. This is not along those specific lines, but it kind of goes in hand, because a lot of people that go to hypnotists for clinical purposes, those same type of clinical issues, a lot of people go to acupuncturists for. Now, I know the basis of acupuncture and how it's supposed to work, but I've always been fascinated with it. I don't have a fear of needles. I wouldn't have a problem experiencing acupuncture whatsoever. You guys know I wrestled professionally for years. I would take razor blades and slice my flesh open. Getting poked with a few needles doesn't bother me. But have any of you ever had acupuncture? If so, what were your experiences with it? And if not, would you ever try it? And right away, Omega Project says, no, I'll pass, thanks. Richard says it doesn't really work the way people think it works. Yeah, and I completely admit to being a noob when it comes to this. My knowledge is very limited, so I am here for you guys to mold my opinion on it. I like to hear it. Nope. And Lachlan Farron says, fuck needles. I have a friend, unfortunately passed away, my best friend, and didn't have many fears in life, but needles was one. So yeah, I can identify. Oh, now Richard, I had it. It was interesting, but it didn't do shit for me. Can I ask you, Richard, what the purpose was that you got it? What you were trying to accomplish with it? Just curiosity. Again, this is nothing but a curiosity question. For those of you listening, whether you're listening because these go live at our YouTube channel, whether you're watching the replay of this stream, or whether you're listening to us on one of the podcast outlets, any place that allows for comments, if you've had acupuncture or have some good knowledge about acupuncture, personal firsthand knowledge, please leave it in the comments. I'd really like to read about it. Let's see. Chrome says no, because all I can remember is the story of the girl who rolled over and fell off the bed. It's just come out a hard pass for Nuptup. Coltonius Maximus, he says it's all right, but it takes a lot of time and expertise. Oh, I'm sure it must. I would try it. I don't think in modern society you're allowed to say what I'm about to say. I don't really have any issues that I need tending to with it, because you guys know we're in such a society where being needy is really valued. I don't have any addictions I'm trying to break. God damn it. I got to come up with a reason to go get needles stuck in me, because I can't even come up with a legitimate reason to want to have needles poked all over me. If I had time, I definitely would, Ivan says. That's what I mean. I'm fascinated by it. I really am. And Lachlan says, and this is why I love our group here. I would only do it if there was going to be a happy ending afterwards. Wait a second, though. Is it possible that the acupuncturist could hit the right nerve or the whatever it is that they focus with their needles to make sure that little Mr. Happy, and I say Mr. Happy in respect to Robin Williams, little Mr. Happy would not want the completion of the event? That would concern me. Dark Sliper says, not a chance. Okay, now Richard says, in his case, he was trying to relieve stress, and my doc said, well, if you think it will make you feel better, try it, but there's no real value in it. Really? That's interesting to me, Richard. I was wondering about that. Now, we've had, as a hypnotist, I've had a lot of success, and some people it doesn't work, obviously, but a lot of success with relieving stress with hypnosis. And so I'm just wondering, in a versus competition, or for something like that, like defeating a habit, an addiction, or in this case, reducing stress or pain. I was just wondering what seems to be the superior method. The train is not a superior method to anything. What is the superior method? Accessing the subconscious, which is what hypnosis does, and teaching your brain a different path, or the actual physical nature of using these needles to either stimulate, deaden, whatever it is that they are designed to do. And Chrome says massages and saunas are a lot better. Happy ending with blades. Men are weird. We are, Chrome. That's true. There's all the evidence is in your favor. It would be ridiculous of me to deny that men are weird. Coltonius Maximus says, my stepdad is a massage therapist and he knows about it. I'll have to ask him more about it. I'd be interesting. I would be interesting. I would be interested to know. Omega says, I think it's a psychological thing. If you believe it works, then it will, but I could be wrong. The placebo effect could be very real in that Omega project. And being a hypnotist, that would cross right over into my wheelhouse. And yes, that's entirely possible. Trust me, if you believe strongly enough, and again, it's just the placebo effect. If you believe strongly enough that something will work, your subconscious can make damn sure that you honestly believe it did work. Gigamax says, I think specifically it works best in sports recovery. That's interesting. I've seen cases in strongman, a sport where you try to get your muscles as dense as possible, not as pretty as possible. Acupuncturing or microneedling, I never heard that term, is great for breaking down strained muscle fibers. Really? Personally, my mother did it and it didn't do much. But that's interesting. I didn't know about that. That's interesting. And it seems like it would make sense in something like that where you're talking about strong men where you're talking big, thick muscle density. Yeah, and as Tuba Man says, placebo effect is absolutely real, 100%. Placebo effect is, and again, that's something I can attest to just from my years of hypnosis, absolutely. Coltonius Maximus says, if anything, it could get endorphins pumping. This is true, too. All right, let me look through them and make sure we don't have any other questions that have been thumbs up a lot. We have one that it's a question about Bernie and the hot girls, but I don't think we're going to go into that one today. Gigamax says, what do you think the biggest misconception of UBI is? That's interesting. I think the biggest misconception of UBI is the same misconception with a lot of the platitudes we've seen coming out of the Democratic side as far as the free stuff. And the biggest misconception is that anything is free. That $1,000 a month's got to come from somewhere. Now, and I respect that. Andrew Yang did illustrate for us where it's going to come from. It's going to come from that value-added tax. So it's not like he's just leaving it out there in the mist. I don't agree at all with applying a value-added tax for that reason, because again, to me, it's just the redistribution of wealth. But I think that is the biggest misconception, as seemingly obvious as that would be, is that anything is free. And some people just seem to believe that. Well, free college, free $1,000 a month, free healthcare. It's free. It's in the phrase. It's in the phraseology. So it obviously didn't cost anybody anything. That would be the number one, the number one misconception to me. And again, I'm going to go to this one because it follows up also from Gigamac. At what point in society, whether it be technological or intellectual growth that leads to it, do you believe UBI will become a well-founded ideology way of government spending? The only way I see it becoming well-founded would be to come up with some way. I don't see a way, because you would have to come up with a way for me to think it's well-founded to fund it without just taking from one person to give to another person. I'm not a fan. Again, I'm going to, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you guys a little story here, and just stick with me. I used to drive a city bus years ago, and you hear a lot of conversations when you drive a city bus. And this is the way that things have broken down for me. We would see two entirely different types of people in a given day that needed public assistance. There was a factory in the town I drove for that employed a good number of people, and there were several women that worked there, and they worked their asses off. And it wasn't minimum wage, but it wasn't big paying job. And they worked hard, and they ground it out every day. And when you hear them talking about how, they're trying to save for this, or they're trying to put this money together to give their kids something special for their birthday, or Christmas is coming up, and fretting about how exactly they're going to take care of that. Listen, all day long, I'll pay taxes to help people who are just grinding and trying to get ahead. I've been there, and just working it and trying to do the best they can for their family. And they're out there, and like I say, they show up at work every day. This is the best job they can find. It doesn't make ends meet. You want my tax dollars? Here you go. I'll give them. I'll start tossing them to you left and right, because that's what I think a decent society does. On that same day, I would take people on the bus, young, able-bodied people who are exchanging information on how to beat the system so they can't be forced to going into work. I couldn't tell you how many different nefarious little schemes they had. One of the ways I guess you could keep your benefits was to enroll in college. So I would hear the conversation. I don't want to go to college. There's a local community college. And it would get explained to them by the others. No. You go sign up. Just go for a day or two, then stop. They won't check. If they do check, what you do is and they had plans. I would hear them going through the plans with one another. If they do check, you just tell your caseworker, say, I felt inadequate. I just felt like I was stupid because I couldn't keep up, and I don't feel right when I go in there, and I just feel belittled, and they'll leave you alone. And that's what they would say. They would advise one another on how to get around doing anything, I'll never forget, the one guy was telling a story about how he went in to get his benefits, and he had quit another job that they had lined him up with, and basically he had said, and I'm paraphrasing, it was many years ago, yeah, the bitch is telling me how now they've got this job lined up for me, and I need to go talk to this man. I said, you know what, bitch, shut up and give me my check. So do I want my tax dollars to go to help that asshole? No, not interested. If you don't have any ambition in life, if you don't want to do anything on your own to better yourself, I don't give a shit about you. If that's harsh, that's harsh. It's just the reality of it. On the other hand, when you're somebody who's out there grinding away and you just can't get over the top because you're not making enough money to do the things you want to do, and even beyond that, to give your kids a great Christmas, I'll pay taxes for that all day. If my tax dollars go so that you can get more in food stamps to pay for your meals, so you have more of your money to put where you need to put it, all day. And I believe, I have faith that I speak for a majority of people when I say that, because I don't think there's very many of us that don't want to help out somebody who is down on their luck, underemployed. It's just, that's the job they can get, whatever the case may be. It's the ones who just want to take and take and take that destroy the whole system, as far as I'm concerned. Let's see. Chrome says, I genuinely think most people are decent who just need a hand every now and again. But unfortunately, there's a large enough group of people who just need their ass beat for using others. The book should be thrown at them instead of just hurting everyone. Yeah, that's basically where I am. Dylan says, I'm permanently in a wheelchair. If I can find a job, they need to be able to. Oh, I didn't see what the answer to that was. But of course, as many of you know, my stepdaughter is multiply disabled. She sits in a wheelchair. Many years ago, we adopted a young man who also has CP, sat in a wheelchair. We have over 25 years, we've been providing care in our home for disabled persons. So we're very much in tune with the disabled community. And to be perfectly honest, our system governmentally for assisting those with disabilities isn't bad. There's a lot of red tape in it. Of course, there's a lot of levels of, like anything else in government, and sometimes it's frustrating, but overall, it's a pretty decent system. So extending that out further to those who are just underemployed or down on their luck, I would never have a problem paying taxes for that. Okay, and finally, what we're going to, I call this, now we're just going to touch on the basics of this. This is the truth, the hard truth about impeachment. We will have an individual podcast about this specifically. But as I see all this conversation going back and forth about the impeachment and remove Trump, keep Trump, blah, 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 witch hunt, whatever the case, there's one hard truth that a lot of people, a lot of extremists don't want to recognize. And that's simply that this was a poor choice of things to go after Trump and try and impeach him for. Listen, and again, I always tell you right up front where I stand on things. People ask me all the time, are you a Trump supporter? No, because I think Trump is a bore and I think he's a goof. However, do I vote for him? Yes, because policy-wise, he reflects what I want the most. I don't go down the line with anybody. I have right-leaning, I have left-leaning ideologies. But Trump, for the current moment, reflects my views the best as far as policy. They started a lot on the, and we all saw it, especially those on the extreme left, started calling for his impeachment the day after the day he was elected. We know that to be the case. We're all on social media. We saw it. Because that call never stopped. In all those years, it never stopped being chanted and repeated. Impeach Trump. So when you finally went for it, you can't expect a lot of people not to believe that it was just like, okay, this is the hill they finally decided to plant their flag on. And that's what it seems like. Of all the missteps Trump has made, there were way better opportunities as far as trying to get him out with something you could get people behind. The simple fact is, the majority of people don't give a shit if he was trying to get dirt on the Bidens. They just don't care. It doesn't matter that he was going to a foreign nation. He went to the Ukrainians because Hunter Biden was employed in the Ukraine. That's where he wanted to find the dirt. Is it wrong? Yeah, probably. If you can prove unequivocally that it was a quid pro quo and he was holding up their aid until they would do that for him, is that wrong? Sure. Would I want him impeached for it? No, I don't. I don't care. I don't care enough to remove a president over it. Now, in fairness, if it were Barack Obama, I wouldn't care enough to remove him over it. It doesn't matter which one it is. It certainly seems with what Joe Biden had said on camera, it certainly seemed that there was a legitimate chance that there was something unseemly or seedy going on there. So to want it investigated, I don't care. And if you believe the polls, when they ask about the topics that Americans are most concerned with, always down near the bottom is the impeachment. They just don't care. And that's the hard truth. When you go on Twitter, when you go on social media, you see it talked about every day. There's new hashtags for it. It's because it's the same people, the exact same people that were calling for Trump to be impeached from the day he won the election. Outside of that echo chamber, it doesn't mean enough in our day-to-day lives that we care. So as far as the fallout, did it hurt Democrats or Republicans more? I don't think either. I think that's a wash. But what's going to happen is he's going to be acquitted in the Senate. The far left will keep saying, but he's been impeached, which tells a lot about why it came out to be anyway, because you hear them saying he's got that permanent stain. If nothing else, he's got that permanent stain. He will always be known as the president who got impeached. Yeah, okay. So you accomplished that. If that was your goal, good for you. But it's just you picked the wrong topic. People just don't care enough. Let's see. Dylan says they should have gone after him on emoluments. Emoluments. I can never pronounce that word. I agree, Dylan. Well, put it this way. I don't even know if I agree that they should have gone after him, tried to impeach him on it, but I think you could have absolutely gotten a lot more public support going after it. But we all saw how it unfolded. Every time Trump would make another misstep, which is regularly, the far left would be crying for his impeachment, and they would be coming down on Pelosi because she wouldn't do it. What are you waiting for? He did this, he did that. Okay, now he did this, now he did that. And it finally caught up with her, and I'll never not believe this. I don't think Pelosi ever wanted to try and impeach him. I think she just wanted to defeat him in November, but she finally got backed into the corner where she had to do it. Dylan says Democrats are just terrible at strategy. Sometimes, yeah, Dylan, I just think that was, if you were going to try and impeach him at some point, again, that's been obvious since day one. You were going to try and impeach him. I think you picked a really, really weak, of all the things he's done, you picked the weakest of them to go after him because people just don't care. The American people in general, if you're not an extremist, they don't care. He went after Joe Biden. And that's people's take on it. Whether you like it or whether you don't like it, it seems to be people's general take. Chrome says, so quick question. Do you think they'll try impeachment too if he wins the election? I think there's a real chance they will. And I think everybody outside of the extreme left will just wash their hands to it and say, you know what? If Congress, if you can't get down to taking care of business, and you're just gonna, and this is gonna come even from people who don't like Trump. Enough is enough. You're not gonna get him out, especially if he wins the second time. You're not gonna get him out. And even if he does something really egregious, it's going to be tough because, again, you've had the boy who cried wolf too many times. Let's impeach him on this, impeach him on that, impeach him on this. Now you got a lot of people believing they only brought this impeachment because they felt they finally had to. So another one, again, it's boy who cried wolf syndrome. Even if it is a real deal when the time comes and our trains come back to visit us again. Dylan says, unfortunately, I think he's the favorite to win in November. If I were a betting man, and I am, and if I were somebody who likes statistics, and I am, I'm a freak for statistics, I would agree with you, Dylan. It's hard to say without knowing who the Democratic nominee is going to be, but I think it's very, very slight, but I would call him at a slight advantage right now. We'll know a lot more, obviously, once we get a Democratic nominee. I think he destroys Elizabeth Warren, but I don't think she's going to get it. Pete Buttigieg, I don't think he'll get it either. I think he could make it interesting. I'm not sure, though, that Buttigieg will do all that well with people of color. And if too many people of color jump to Trump, and I think they might over Buttigieg, I don't think he can win because of that. Biden would have to not have any major faux pas to really hurt himself, which is a long shot. And I think Bernie Sanders, if he became the candidate and all the attention was put on him, I think once they started breaking down all his proposals and people actually started to understand, now this is not the people that are hardcore into politics, the average person started to understand how much all of his free stuff is going to cost, I think that would do him in. He would be done. So that's why I think it's going to be tough. So, and Dylan says Bernie versus Trump is interesting. It is, but that's where I think will be Bernie's undoing, because when he has to come up with the real hard math and things like when he's not allowed to skate on Medicare, Medicaid for all, Medicare for all, whatever it is, Medicare for all, when he has to answer, okay, first of all, when we have this many people in the healthcare profession saying that if you pay your hospitals, your care providers at the Medicare rate, they'll go bankrupt. What are you going to do about that? Are you going to acknowledge the fact that you're going to have to raise what Medicare pays as well as covering everybody? And until they are willing to also acquiesce that once you provide Medicare for all, you're going to have a lot more people going to the doctor, going to the emergency room for things. we all know, all of us in the workforce, we know that person that's gonna that's gonna go to the doctor regularly whenever they want a day off. A lot of jobs require a note from a doctor if you call in sick. Do you know how swamped they're going to get? And all of us, we all know a hypochondriac or two or three or four. If you've got a decent circle of friends and family, which most of us do, and you don't know a hypochondriac, it's because you are the hypochondriac, because within that group, there's at least one of you in there. So until you address things like that, and if he were to get the nomination, he's going to have to, that's where I think he's going to get undone. Is Biden the I'm friends with Obama guy? Richard asks. That's not a horrible strategy, to be perfectly honest with you, Richard. As much as I've said over and over, I didn't necessarily agree with Obama on a lot of issues. I like him a lot as a man, as a human being. I think Barack Obama is a great dude. I really do. I admire him. So, given how prone old Joe is towards saying the wrong thing or doing dopey things, I would hide behind that mantle of I'm Obama's pal as much as I could. Let's see. I think Trump is projected to have a third of the black vote at present. Really, Chrome? I hadn't seen that. If that were the case, if Trump gets a third of the vote of people of color, it's over now, I think. And it doesn't matter. Fill in the Democratic side with any name. If Trump goes to anywhere near 30% of the vote of people of color, it's done. Let's see. Bernie shot himself in the foot, Omega Project says, before he even started, and Joe will inevitably do the same to me. It's a foregone conclusion that Trump wins in every way. I'm not willing to go there yet. I'm not willing to say it's a foregone conclusion, but I would make him the favorite. And we do have to factor in there. We talk about Joe is prone to screwing up. Who knows what the hell Trump might do between now and then. The only thing Trump has going for him is people are so used to it now, they become immune to it. It would have to be something truly astonishingly egregious to hurt him anymore, because otherwise people are just like, yeah, it's just Trump. All right, let me check through the questions before we wrap up here. Oh, this is fascinating to me. This comes from Alpha Centauri. Different two-part question. A group of scientists in the UK have accidentally found what they claim to be a very effective treatment to kill almost all forms of cancers, a theoretical cure of most major types of the disease. But this got me thinking. Second part is in questions list. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Okay, let me put that one as done and go to the second one. Second part to my question. What are your thoughts on how doctors and big pharma companies that receive major profit from the current cancer treatments react to this? Will they accept the decline of sick patients coming in for chemotherapy and buying a list of their cancer meds, which will result in the loss of revenue? Or will greed cause them to try and sabotage this possible breakthrough by sending their ninja assassins to kill the group of researchers while they're walking in the streets? That's a fascinating question. I did not know about this breakthrough, and that is a great question. I am nothing. I've said it before. I am nothing of a overly suspicious type. I am not a conspiracy theorist in the least. However, anytime you bring lots of money into a situation, which is exactly what Alpha is describing here, there's the potential for greed to win out overall. If this is a legitimate breakthrough and there is a real opportunity for cancer to largely be eradicated by it, a lot of people would lose what is their current means of making a living. That there's no question about that. I think the vast majority of people in the cancer treatment community, the huge majority of them, I'm going to go out there and say, without a doubt, would welcome it and say, you know what? Let's kick the shit out of this disease and I'll go find a new job. Are there people at the top, at pharmaceutical companies, perhaps, that would see such a huge hit on their bottom line that they would rather that this cure-all not be out there? Yes, I think so. So would it go so far as to send out the ninja assassins? I'd like to think no, but I don't know. My leaning would be to say no. I think at this point, and only at this point, and I believe technology is a lot of the reason for that, because you can document yourself as a human being from day to day so easily now. I think if that cure is out there, it will make it to market. I maybe I'm being too optimistic, but do I think that these people would have to be really aware of their surroundings and be really wary? Yes, I do. But do I think they'd get taken out? I hope not. I think not, but it's not an unreasonable question to ask. So that was fascinating. Lachlan says, the former British Labour leader, our left-wing political party, wanted to abolish tuition fees in the UK. This really wasn't fiscally possible. Do you think tuition fees are a thing that should be non-existent, or do you support them? I know it works very differently in the UK compared to the USA. I had a long conversation about that in a line at the airport once with a young woman about how the UK structures their tuition fees. I'm trying to remember a lot of what she said. And, you know, the government helps you pay for it, but then once you're making a certain amount of money, they recoup what they invested in you over that amount, and so on and so forth. Seemed like a reasonable system. No, I don't think tuition fees should be non-existent. I think tuition fees could be substantially dropped. I think the government, our government, I didn't push start answering, was well-intentioned when they got involved in the student loan process, and they'd made loans easy for everybody to get so everybody could get an education. But the unintended consequence of that was the colleges, the universities then started saying, whoa, everybody's got access to money. Let's get these tuition prices out there. Let's bathe in cash. And that's basically what happened. So I think there are ways to regulate what it costs to go to college. But I also believe that even in the current system, because I'm living it right now with my son, I think there are ways to go to college and not be destroyed by debt. I fully believe that we're doing it. I think people need to be more intelligent, young people, when they make their college choices. And the case I always make is, okay, say you want a gender studies degree. That's fine. That's what you want to get out of college with, is a gender studies degree. That's fine. Be aware of how limited your potential salary is going to be with that degree, and don't overpay for your college. And that's true with anything, no matter what you're going to. If you're going to get a gender studies degree, stay at home and do your schooling online and do it cheaply. If you're going to go into social work, a very admirable field, extremely admirable field, but it doesn't pay well. Don't go to an Ivy League school. Don't pay Ivy League money to get that degree. Go to a state university. Go to a community, wherever you need to go to get that degree inexpensively. It's not going to matter. They're going to interview you for the job in your field and base that interview on who you are as a person and how they think you will work within their system. They're not going to give any real credence in that type of job, in that type of position, to whether your degree is from buttfuck you or if it's from Harvard. It doesn't matter. If you go in there with a Harvard degree and you're an asshole, they're still not going to want you in their circle, in their office with them every day. Be logical about what you can expect to get from your degree and pay accordingly. That's my answer to that. Okay, I'll look at a couple more comments. We've had a nice long podcast live stream here. I appreciate all the interaction. Again, for those of you who want to be involved if you want to be involved in the actual recording of these, they take place at our I just completely run out of gas. So just can't. No, they take place at our Patreon, which we affectionately call the Goosh. And the link is patreon.com/SpazBoysComedy. Please come in and hang out with us. We'd love to have you here. And the fact that they suicided Epstein makes me worry, Chrome says. Yeah, well, again, as much as I'm not a conspiracy theorist, as I've said, Epstein didn't kill himself. And so that could extend over to researchers who are potentially putting a lot of people out of work. I like to think it won't in this case. I think that the people that wanted Epstein dead are much more well connected and have many more means available to them to get that accomplished than do those who might want to take out cancer researchers. But yes, it's something that has to be considered. Let's see. I think they'll buy the rights to produce it. I think we're talking about the cancer medication, and madly overprice it like they do with AIDS medicines. That's where the government should be involved. I've always said, listen, pharmaceutical companies have every right to make back their investment. They put in hundreds of millions of dollars in research and development. That said, they don't have a right to take a pill that cost $100 million to create, and now to produce, they cost 20 cents per. Once that $100 million has been recouped off this pill, they do not have a right to charge $20 per pill for this 3-cent production. And that's what needs to be broken down more within the system. It needs to be looked at and say, okay, you can show us on paper where, again, it costs you $100 million to create this product, to create this, we'll say, pill. Now you're charging people $3 per pill for it. When you've recouped that, there is no reason that price can't, you can't, or at least maintained. That price should never be allowed to go up. We want people in the pharmaceutical field to make a lot of money because you want brilliant minds in that field. That doesn't mean it has to come at the expense of people in day-to-day world who are dying because they can no longer afford this medicine that you spent all that money to develop, like insulin. The Chrome says, "God, now all I can think about is that ass that hiked up the price of his company's medications to customers and gloated about the pharma bro. What the hell was his name? But that's how we all knew him, as the pharma bro. I remember. Yeah, that was among the most smarmy, smug-looking individuals I think I've ever seen. It was almost impossible to not look. Martin Shkreli, right? That's it. Thank you, Dylan. It was almost impossible to look at him. And now, while I am not officially endorsing violence, it was impossible to look at him and not at least want to punch him in the face. EpiPens cost like $600 in the States, about $100 here. Yeah, and that's the thing, Richard. That how long ago was the research and development of an EpiPen was paid for? Had to be ages ago, years ago. They've recouped it. There's no reason that something that is life-giving like that is so important for people to be able to live that it has to come in at that price. Now, I know what they'll say. They'll say, well, we don't always get that for it because, if it goes through Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, they will only pay so much. It doesn't matter. There's no reason. You have to have something of a human responsibility if you're going to be in the medical pharmaceutical field. I just believe that. All right, guys, I could stay here all day. These conversations are fascinating. I appreciate all the comments, all the questions. This has been a lot of fun. We'll be doing these regularly. Eventually, we will have a regular release time for the podcast. And again, I'm still waiting we will be on Apple, on the Apple network soon. We are already on Spotify. We've got several other places because this podcast is new. It hasn't actually made it to their listings yet, but it will. And I will start giving you an actual day of the week and time that it'll be released. As far as those of you who watch along with us at the recording of it, at the live stream recording of the podcast, those fluctuate day and time by design because, again, we have an international audience. Now, our first podcast was recorded 7 p.m. on a Thursday here in I'm in New York State. And now this one was recorded at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. I just try and mix them up so that people from all different parts of the world can be involved in it. And I will always give you guys a heads up, as I have been, a notice ahead of time so you can make it to the streams that you wish to make it in to see. But hopefully you guys had a good time. There's always something more to talk about. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the fact that we have a little bit of a sense of humor about things as we go as well. Bottom line for Andrew Yang, not my guy. I guess that's the best way to put it. Andrew Yang is not my guy, but he's a good guy. I don't agree with a lot of the things that he's proposing, but I think he's a genuinely decent dude, and I wish him the best. He'll probably be around in politics for some time. I think a lot of the Democrats that have already dropped out, such as Kamala Harris, I think my personal opinion is their presidential aspirations anyway are done, but not as not the case with Andrew Yang. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. All right, guys, thank you for hanging out with me in this podcast. Please make sure you're subscribed everywhere. Come to our Crowdcast page. There's links for that. Come over to the Goosh, our Patreon. The YouTube channel is Spaz Boys Comedy, or follow us on your favorite outlet for your podcasts, or you can always follow us where we podcast directly from, which is Buzzsprout. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us, and I'll be talking to you all real soon. Y'all hate that. I will be talking to you real soon.